Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Starterville. And in this series, we are taking a completely vanilla city and working through various population milestones. So in our previous episode, we reached a population of 50,000, and today we're going to reach 75,000. But to mix things up a little bit, I wanted to start to introduce DLCs to this build. But I don't want to do them all at once. I want to thoughtfully work through those DLCs, and today we are going to focus on the Sunset Harbor DLC. So I thought it might be nice to start out with a look at what this DLC changes for us. So it adds a few things to our panel. So nothing under roads, nothing under zoning, nothing under districts, nothing under power, but under water's where things start getting interesting. So first of all, we get this large water tower, which is a very, very useful asset. And then we get a number of water treatment plants. So we get this inland water treatment plant, which can be very beneficial, along with inland advanced water treatment plant. And then the eco plants, which cost quite a bit more, but produce less pollution, ideally anyway. So one of the interesting things to look at here is, so this inland water treatment plant produces 100 pollution. The advanced inland water treatment plant produces 20. And the eco inland water treatment plant produces 45, whereas the eco advanced inland water treatment plant produces 7. So really these two are your most efficient. There's some noise pollution there, but you get that with all of them. So just something to be aware of with that particular asset. We also get some new industries, so we get the fishing industry. So this is the first time that we're going to be introduced to the supply chain in City Skylines. So it's a really fun concept. We also get access to the waste transfer facility and the waste processing complex, which is a much more advanced way of looking at trash management. Under our healthcare panel, we get elder care, and we also get a child health center. So that also is a great benefit. Nothing under fire, nothing under police, nothing under education. Under transport, we do get some new options. So we have our bus depot, but we also get our intercity bus station and an intercity bus terminal. So those can be very, very useful in attracting Sims to your city. In addition, we also get trolley buses. So this is a heck of a lot like the standard buses, but the difference is these are all electric. So presumably they would be quieter. So that is a benefit of these vehicles. We also get some new metro options. So we haven't placed any metro stations yet, but I think we're going to do so today. And so before, in the vanilla base game, no DLCs, you only have access to the underground metro station. Now we also have a at-grade metro station and an elevated metro station. So that's a huge benefit as well. Nothing under trains, nothing under ships. Under air transport, we do have helicopters. I believe helicopters. Yeah, they come with the base game. But what this adds is one more asset that I want to point out, and that is under the unique buildings, you also get access to an aviation club. So what's interesting about the aviation club is you can actually place this before you can place an airport. So kind of something interesting to look at. So I do want to expand the city today. We have this, really it's like a 2.25 grid city at this point. But we have the ability now to do something a little more advanced with our water production facilities. So I do want to do that. I'm just going to start purchasing a variety of tiles at this point. We're going to expand the city. We've had a lot of high density residential development, but I think that we're going to also look at having some development that's perhaps not so dense. But to start out, I do want to start thinking about our water treatment. It was pointed out in the comments that you could sit here at this floating cafe and admire this pollution being dumped right into the river. Clearly not the most desirable option. So I think that what we'll do is look to create some sort of public works complex on the other side of the river. I want to get this away from our city, and I think that this is something that'll work fine for us. So I was thinking of trying to keep this even with the rail corridor. I'm not sure how I feel about that just yet. And through the power of YouTube, I'm going to get rid of that day-night cycle. It's a nice feature, but it's just not what I'm looking for right now. So I do have this road. I used the train tracks to line up this road with the train tracks. So I just kind of want a nice parallel road there, and I'll use that to begin my public works campus. And this is a fairly undesirable area, and that's the reason why I've chosen this. It's kind of a strange piece of land with all these rail junctions, but I do think it will work well for this purpose. So I'm also going to use the rail over here as a guide because I want multiple connections. I don't want this to just be a situation where you go in and it's a big cul-de-sac. Clearly that would not be very desirable from a city services standpoint. So I will make a loop around there, and I guess I'll upgrade this one little dirt road. And we are going to loop this back around and continue to mirror what is happening with the rails. Okay, so now we have a loop back here, and we can create a little public works campus. So there's no reason for this to be on the water. I am going to be using the advanced inland water treatment facilities. The main reason I'm putting it over here is just that this is a kind of an awkward chunk of land. It's going to be noisy, and it would seem to make some sense in my mind to concentrate in these types of uses in an area that would otherwise not be very desirable. The other thing you could do over here is have a small, kind of a small industrial area if that was desirable. So let's take a look at our topography, because we do want to make sure that we have a level pad for this. You can see it is kind of a mess. So we are going to do a bit of grading to make sure that we are not placing this kind of at a, we don't want our different facilities, because we're going to have multiple, to be at different heights. So after thinking about all of these facilities, give it some thought, look at the production, look at how much energy it uses. I think that the most logical facility to use, at least in a place like this, so I look at both the inland advanced water treatment plant and the eco advanced inland water treatment plant. And the big difference that you'll notice between the two of these, outside of the cost, the advanced inland water treatment plant is less. The electricity required is, I think it's 3 times approximately what is necessary for the advanced as opposed to the eco advanced. So I would much rather use less electricity to get the same output. The benefit that you're receiving in terms of pollution, significantly less. And then when you look at the upkeep, it's only a little bit more in the advanced than on the eco. So from that standpoint, I think that this is the right choice for the city. So this is what we're going to place for now. So I do want to get this as far over as I can, because I'm going to probably need a couple of these in the future. We're also going to need power lines. So let's get those in place as well. So I took some liberties there. I think I'm going to make another connection for redundancy's sake. There we go. And I want to make this roadway connection now somewhere, because I know that we're going to have some issues making connections without it. So let's get that placed now. I think I'm going to have a local road kind of running parallel to this highway. So I'll turn this on. And now I'm going to use the freeform tool, because that's going to allow me to maintain that distance with the highway, even though the highway is turning. So I'm going to use the nodes to make those targeted connections. And sometimes it'll just click off if you're a little bit too close, and it's just not liking what I'm doing. So I will take it a little bit further and see if I can still... Maybe I just need to forego what I was trying to do. So the reason why I brought this back is I know that my bridge connection is going to be a few nodes back, so I'll make that curve before the future bridge. So just kind of planning in advance for what might go here. I don't think we're going to have an interchange here necessarily. We could, but now with this road connection, that might be a challenge. But we could still go across this with a bridge. There's plenty of space. Let's see how many tiles. Yeah, we got approximately, I'd say, 14 tiles till the center of that. 12 is what we're really looking for to have a nice smooth connection, and it's just about right. So I think that's going to work out just swell. So this is going to be a temporary power line that we're going to use to make the connection between that advanced wastewater facility and our city. And hopefully this production is going to line up with what we're currently putting into the water. So, oh no, we're going to need a couple of those. So just looking at that, each one of these has the exact same capacity. Actually, hold on. I think I'm looking at this wrong. So the capacity of this is 160,000, and this one is also 160,000. So we are going to need 3 of these to replace what we are going to be losing. And that's fine. We have a lot of money available. And this land is incredibly valuable and will make the land around it even more valuable. Maybe instead of going into the camera, I should go to my bulldozer. This is why shortcuts are valuable. I never use them. I should. Okay, so the water will clear up here soon, and that is wonderful. The other thing that we could do over here, now that I think about it, is maybe have the fishing industry. So that might be something we think about in the future. But for the time being, we have a lot of demands that we need to continue to meet. And one of those things I want to do is work on our industrial demand and our residential demand as well. I think I'm going to finish building out this neighborhood that I started before. Might as well. Nice way to start the episode. Let this build out. So I really don't like cul-de-sacs, but this is a kind of a unique chunk of property. So I might just have a small cul-de-sac back here. And that's the way that we can at least use this land. Otherwise, it's kind of not very valuable. So I think we're just going to continue. We're going to build out this area over here. And one of the things that I'm thinking about as I'm building these neighborhoods, so we are moving further away from the city center. The grid's starting to break down a little bit. This is kind of what you would expect to see if you're thinking about the way, at least in North America, that cities developed. In different periods of time, different types of roadway networks were utilized. And in the 1950s, for instance, you saw kind of a grid type of roadway configuration, but it would break down into some of these more curvilinear patterns. And that's what I'm trying to emulate here. So there's still connectivity. I think that, it still will function well, but it's certainly not as good as, from a connectivity standpoint anyway, from a more traditional grid. One of the other downfalls of this type of development in reality is that this is much more difficult to retrofit with other uses. So when you end up with kind of these strange blocks, it's just significantly more difficult to fit other types of uses in there in the future. So you end up with neighborhoods that are uniformly single family, and about the only thing you can retrofit in there is a duplex. Don't think you're going to get anything more dramatic in there than that because of the zoning choices that were made. And the land use and really the urban design choices that were made in these areas. Okay, so we did keep these water pipes under the road where they belong, and apparently we're having monster sewage problems. And it's all coming down to power. So that tells me that we need to take care of that before we let this go any further. So at this point, let's think back to what we've been doing for power. So we have a couple of I think we have an oil power plant over here. We've got a solar. I think we might start thinking more about nuclear power. And the reason for that is it just produces so much more. It's relatively clean energy. So we're gonna go for it. I do want to clean up this grading. Probably should have done this beforehand, but I didn't. So have to clean it up after the fact. Yeah, and that's pretty ugly. I really can't stand that. There's one way to fix that though. Oh, that looks great. Let's make sure we got water. We're good. We're covered. We'll speed this up just to make sure that everything comes online. We're good. Now, the only issue that I see with what I just did is I didn't really give myself any room to expand water treatment, and we are at a point where soon we'll need to increase our capacity. So that was a little bit short-sighted. I do want to look at our power. So we're way over capacity at this point. So I want to start decommissioning some of these old power plants that are just not necessary anymore. That's a really dirty power plant. And that industrial land is valuable. So decommission away. I'm also going to look, I noticed that there's a couple spots where I move things. Let's make sure that we get things filled in. Okay, so we do have some more power plants. I don't necessarily want to decommission this, but I do want the funds. This costs a lot in upkeep per week, so I'm just going to turn this off, and that's going to do some wonders for me in terms of being able to save some money. You see that it goes right into my bank account, so that is a huge benefit to me. So I could also disable these wind turbines. We're still, producing double the amount of power that we need, but I'm going to keep them there for aesthetics. That said, we're just looking at this. I'm kind of curious about the sound. Let's see what that's doing. Yeah, I mean, that is troubling. Maybe I'll get rid of one of them, and I'm just going to eliminate this altogether, and hopefully that will improve. Yeah, that's going to be a big help. Hopefully, so this little icon here that's showing that this person is sick because of the noise, hopefully that goes away. The other thing I could do would be to actually go ahead and upgrade this road. Ooh, little chunk of dirt road. Kind of wonder if I have any more of those. I don't see any more. That doesn't mean that there aren't more, but I think right now I'm good. That said, it looks like that situation improved for that resident. Things are better. I'm happy. So very, very good. We could concentrate all of these across the river, but this will be fine for now. So I see some death care issues as well. This might be because of how much zoning we did at once, or it's also could be because the cemetery is full. Let's take a look at our death care. So we do have quite a bit of cemetery utilization. Crematorium, let's see, we do have quite a bit of capacity there, but I'm wondering if these are spread out enough. Yeah, we're okay. I think we could probably use one more. And might add one to this new neighborhood. So even though it says our capacity is crazy, the thing to think about is these hearses have to make their way through the transportation network, and you only get 7 per crematorium. So sometimes you've got to overdo it with the crematoriums. Unfortunately, I don't love it, but it is the reality that we're forced to confront. So, in this neighborhood, I'm going to just zone 100% residential. I think that would be something you might see in an area like this. Done. And apparently right here, added some that we shouldn't have. So we'll take care of that as well. And I think this is going to increase our population quite a bit fairly quickly. So why don't we just leave that for a second? Let's start thinking about our industries. So one of the things that we have available in this DLC to us is our fishing industry. I like this little area right here. I don't love all the rocks, but I think that we could remove some rocks and establish a fishing industry right here. So let's do that. And now we're going to go into our garbage and industry menu. And so I want to take a look at the assets we have available to us. We have a fishing harbor, a fish farm, a fish market, and a fish factory. So that's kind of the whole supply chain. If you have the fish harbor, you can go and collect general fish. You could send it directly to the market, or if you had a fish factory, you could send it to the fish factory. It's processed and then sold, either exported or sold in the commercial areas. But it all starts out with this fishing harbor. And we're going to start with a fishing harbor right here. Now this does have a road attached, so that I personally find that a little bit frustrating, or not frustrating right now, but it can be frustrating because you don't have as much control over what is happening in with these roads. So you've got to be a little careful with them. But if you use your freeform tool, I think they can be not that bad to work with. The biggest complaint that I have is that when you're using these sorts of assets, so this is one of them, harbor is one of them, you can't set the directionality of the road, or you're just stuck with the road as it is. That's certainly a complaint, but it's a relatively minor one. Okay, so now we have power there. We need water as well. And now we need to establish our fishing routes. So you see that there are all these different kinds of fish that you can get. Well, that you have to have different docks for that. So right now, because I haven't caught enough fish, all I can do is have just a general normal fishing dock. So we're just going to create a small route. So nothing elaborate, but we'll see some fishing boats come from here. Let's see, 14 to 26 workers. They're going to head out this route. They're going to circle around, and they will produce fish. So that's a beneficial thing for the city. Now we need to think about the entire supply chain here. So we want to think about having a fish market. So I think that this would be a really cool amenity to have in the downtown area. So I want to keep the trip short between the fish market and the actual district, or the industry area. So I'm thinking I want to make some sort of connection across the water. We have this cul-de-sac. Kind of want to bring it around and send it underneath this bridge. So I am going to do a little bit of grading to make this work, because I already see that I have a problem. And we have some height differential issues here, and that's going to create problems. So we're going to again need to go through and do a little bit of grading to make this work. So I'm always keeping an eye on that soil availability. The last thing I want to do is run out of soil. Now it's a nice gentle slope up, and this, in my mind, would be a pretty interesting place to have that fish market. So this provides a couple of benefits. So first of all, having this road here means that there's a pedestrian path to get around here. Second, the length, the trip length to get over here right now, over to this area, is pretty long. This is a short route. I'm hoping that it's utilized as a local road and not an arterial. We'll have to see. That's certainly not the intention. I want it to be a cut through, not a thoroughfare. So we'll add this here, and I'm going to try to get this grading to be a little more gentle than that. And yeah, this is just kind of an inappropriate location for it. I should have looked first. Let's take a look at our topographic view and see if we can find a better place for this. Yeah, this is a much better location. So we're going to let this building guide the placement of our roads in this particular area. With the exception of this one, I do want to create one stub road so I know where this building should be. I want to maximize my density. This is still downtown, but this is a key feature of the downtown. So now I'm going to grade out from here a little bit, just so that I have a more gentle slope in this area. Very nice. And in this area near the train tracks, there's really only two things that make sense, and that's either office or commercial type uses. So on the other side we have commercial. I think we might extend that over here as well. The one thing that I wish I would have done in this area is have some sort of pedestrian path through here. That is a huge missed opportunity in my mind, and one that might be worth remedying. So, what is this right here? It's a child health center. Interesting. So I thought that this was only available with Sunset Harbor, but this must have been one of those assets that was added to the game when Sunset Harbor was released. So generally, there are certain things added to the game, the base game, when DLCs are released, and Children's Health Center and Elder Care are clearly part of that. So yeah, we are going to add a path through here just to get across. And I'm struggling a little bit with my grid, so I'm going to turn the grid off, turn everything but basically angle off. I think I need to go up at least 3 clicks on the lowest setting. Okay, and that's a nice gentle slope there. I don't like what it's doing with the ramp, so I am going to make my own connection there. But I think that's a much nicer approach. So now let's get those commercial buildings in place. So I could, if I got really into it, I could go ahead and add another road back here to maximize the density. I don't think it's really worth it here, so I'm not going to worry about it. We do have water here, so that is a benefit of building in this location. So our population's gone up by 1,000, so we are 1/25th of the way to our population milestone today. I think I'm going to continue the dense commercial uses along this corridor as well. Again, thinking that sound is going to be an issue, though I am going to take away some of these on the shore because I don't want these buildings going underwater. Also going to let that rock be. So one of the nice things is if you have an area like this and you're using the paint bucket, it won't, if you highlight, it'll work to preserve any props like this. So I'm going to preserve that one. Okay, so this area will continue to build out. We do need to fix our water system in this area. Okay, very good. So eventually this is going to be a pretty happening place. For the time being, perhaps not so much. So we have kind of off the charts industrial demand. So there are two ways that we could remedy this. We could go ahead and build a whole bunch of industrial. I kind of want to migrate away from that and start thinking more about office type uses. Before I get to that, I'm thinking about this. I have this collector that would line up perfectly behind that fish market, so I am going to put that in place now. It'll be really hard to fix that in the future. Other thing, I probably should have been a little bit more careful. I do want to make a roadway connection and reestablish our grid. So I am going to make that connection here. And we'll leave this as kind of an open space behind these buildings. There are some terrain issues here. I know that might not seem extreme, but there's a lot happening. So we're just going to leave that be and have a green space available. So the way I'm thinking of the downtown at this point is it's really everything south and maybe just a little bit north of this collector. So this is all going to be dense downtown. This is going to be our public works campus, our fishing area, our fishing industry. We have a 100% route efficiency. We're in a good place there. We should probably think, now that we have our fish market, think about the fish factory as well. So let's get that into place. I want to keep this trip as short as possible, so I think having it right next to it would be the best approach, except that it's really ugly. So maybe we'll do some grading and put it right next to it. So again, we've got a pretty challenging spot to work with. Okay, so we don't need this power line right here anymore because our fish factory is making the connection for us. Now I'm going to fix this grading. And it's not going to be perfect, but we can hide that with landscaping. All right, I like it. They don't have enough fish, so that's kind of a for now problem. That will get better. Over here, all right, sold 40 fish. Doesn't seem like much to me. All right, so let's continue to build out this new downtown area. We don't really have a grid established over here now that we have completely broken away from the other downtown area, so we're going to establish a new one. And we do need to maintain that power connection. Unfortunately, we're going to cut into here. So we would probably want to make sure that we don't have our power cul-de-sac like this. But we don't have disasters DLC, so I guess we'll be okay. Now I kind of want to mix the uses a little bit. Still maintaining, though, that this is really a CBD, a central business district. I really don't love this super block. And yeah, I might break it up a little bit. So I initially said I was going to leave this. I can't do it. I can leave that. At least there's some connectivity through here. Certainly better than it was. The primary reason in a central business district, at least here in America, that you'd see it like this, where it's all gridded out and orderly and tidy, is, well, first of all, the time in which it was developed, and second of all, it makes rapid and efficient expansion of the grid to accommodate rapid growth fairly easy to do. So you would expect to see that sort of thing in this kind of an area. So now we've got this interesting situation where our grid broke down, and I can either continue this pattern or attempt to fit our old pattern into a kind of messy network over here. And I'm going to try to fit our old pattern in. So this could get messy. We'll see how it works. So I'm going to use my freeform tool for this. Turn off basically everything. Kind of eyeball the connections. Maybe I'll keep angle on. Okay, so I changed the grid here. And I think this is a spot I might reserve for one of the specialty unique buildings. So I kind of put that there as a reminder to myself. I think sometimes that's really helpful. So you can kind of see now I've at least got this grid to work itself back into its original form. What are we going to do over here though? So we can either do a park. We need to get our land values up. You see that they're suffering over here. I messed up over here in my mind too by not including anything. I included no support services outside of a crematorium. We're going to use eminent domain on 2 houses and make everyone happy, except for, of course, the people living at that house. Sorry about that. Got to do it for the betterment of the neighborhood. So I'm very sorry to that resident, former resident. We do the same thing over here. We'll take out 2 houses instead of 3, which we could have done. The nice thing is by placing it over here, we made a connection to this path along our arterial. So we're adding connectivity in here. We should continue that on the other side. So this is really important to make sure that you're keeping up with your land values if you are trying to increase your population, because a lot of these buildings aren't going to level up until they have higher land values. So huge benefit to doing that. Let's take a look at our schools. We're kind of on the edge everywhere. And part of the reason for that is that we've built no new schools. So I might use a little bit more eminent domain. And this is a good demonstration of the problem of not planning. So I just took out a whole bunch of schools. I placed them over here mainly so that they have access to this pedestrian network. We've now linked up these neighborhoods. I do see there's a small path connection we didn't make. Presumably, students from this neighborhood could walk down here, cross this busy arterial, and get over to their school. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's possible. And in the game, that's all that matters. We'd certainly have some discussions about that in real life, and I don't think that these parents would be all that happy about this placement of this school. Okay, so that is helping us out a little bit. Our university capacity is still teetering, and we're going to need to keep an eye on that, especially if we plan on continuing to develop offices. So over here, I do want to start thinking about some of our bigger buildings, some of our more unique buildings, and I'm wondering what would make the most sense to place in this big area. So there's a lot of commercial stuff going on. There's a market over here. I don't think the Posh or the Grand Mall is the way to go, but maybe we start to think about city services. Yeah, why don't we place that here? So I wish that this was 1 tile wider because this triggers my OCD. I can't center it. It drives me nuts. You just go back and forth, back and forth. Not being able to center it. So we're going to have to try to make this look a little bit nicer all by our lonesome. So since this is a government building, I do want it to feel, I guess, a little bit more grand. And we'll create a public plaza space. So it doesn't like my angles here, so I might take those out because this public plaza space means a lot to me. I don't know why I bothered. So we might just need to think about this a little bit differently. So I'll put these at the steps. Plant some trees. Those are too big. And then we'll let this area fill in with zoning. I do think that we might want to put another row of trees behind it, though, just to finish this area off. And then around it, I think clearly office type uses make the most sense. So this is going to not only increase the land value in this area, but I think it's really attractive. So I like it. And we'll just make all of these blocks in this area office. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I also do think it makes some sense to mix in some residential in this area as well. But we want to be thoughtful about it and keep it away from some of the uses that might be incompatible with a residential use. The other thing to keep in mind is we want to keep them in places where maybe they got a nice view of the water or of the boats in this case. So I think that we're going to zone some high density residential along the waterfront. And we will allow these buildings to pull themselves up. I think we'll do a few blocks of that. And we'll buffer that with offices. And then continue our commercial zoning back here. I do want to pause it for a second. First of all, I don't have any utilities. Second of all, I don't have any services. So we're going to want to get services to this district. And that's a little bit off the road. But in spirit, it's right. So we're going to go with spirit right now. The thought behind the water... Nope, can't do it. I really wanted to. I really, really wanted to. But I can't do it. I've got to make it right. Okay, so before everything fills in around here, I do think it might be nice to get some police and fire coverage in this area. So I don't want that to be the main attraction here, so to speak. But I do want to make sure that we are considering it and keeping it in a really well integrated part of this area. I also need schools. So we're going to have a school and a high school over here. This is very dense, so you'd expect to see them in close proximity to one another. I also haven't been managing my junctions over here just yet, so let's do that now. So I could have also made this a priority road, and that would have made this a lot easier, but I like things to be difficult, so that's what I did. Made it difficult. Look at that pedestrian bridge that we put together. Lots of use. Clearly a benefit. Very good. Now I do think it would be nice to have some landscaping back here. So we're going to do that as well. Our power's connected at this point. So I'm going to back this up and fill in our zoning. Okay, so we've got a significant landscape buffer there, which I think would be necessary even for commercial users. They wouldn't want that level of noise coming from the trains. They would expect something like this to make it a little bit more, I guess, livable, a little bit nicer place to be. So there's one building that developed here, and we're in kind of a weird spot in terms of our landscaping. So I am going to go after the fact and add in some additional landscaping to mirror what I've already done. And now I've made this landscaping really orderly, and the thought process there is this is a government building. It is orderly. It is demonstrating that it's a building to be taken seriously. And order is serious, so keeping it orderly. Okay, that's much better. I really wish it was centered, because I would love this view to have a nice centered office of oppression. But we're not going to get that, unfortunately. Not without Move It, and we don't have Move It. So this will have to do. I guess the other way that I could do this would be to actually manually move the road and have it kind of meander into that center. For the density aspect of what I'm doing here, I'm not really into that idea. So we're going to hold back from that. Speaking of density, we're going to have an issue here with our roadway network. And that is, if we want to maximize our density, we kind of have to have this parallel frontage road. I do think we're going to do that. I have no problem with that. And we'll just have a row of trees or something like that. I think it'll look nice. It'll look like an extra wide boulevard. We're going to continue to have run-ins with this power, though, which is kind of frustrating. But that's the price that we're going to pay for the time being for the convenience of having all of our utilities consolidated over there with the exception of our water pump. So we still do not have enough fish. So what that means to me is that we need another fishing harbor to make this work. So what I'm going to do is create create another one of these docks. I want to keep it at the same level, so I am going to grade this a bit. We'll make a connection over here. And now that I'm thinking about it, I might just want to reconfigure this whole thing. And we'll make a series of harbors side by side. So this is perhaps not the height of realism, but truthfully, you would expect to see some changes in topography for a harbor district. So the other thing that we could have done is set up a fish farm. Certainly an option, just not the one I chose. So let this go for a minute. Let this work itself out. By work itself out, I mean flood. Those are just a little bit off in terms of their alignment. I wish that they were closer or further apart. I almost feel like that's a better solution, having them further apart, because at least then it feels like a choice. I'm going to rework this roadway network to make it fit a little bit better. So lots of grading, lots of changes. And that's okay. That is quite all right. Okay, so let's take a look at our water lines. So I probably should have given this a little bit more thought before I created kind of a mess over here, but it will remedy itself over time. Things will get better, and that's okay. We all make short-sighted decisions from time to time. At least in the game you can fix it. In real life, you're maybe stuck with them for 100 years. So we've got this. Let's get some power connections made. And then we've got to look at our fishing routes once again. So I think we're going to go into a little more deconstruction of this route, because I don't want these paths to overlap. So we'll send this a little bit further down the river before looping back around. Now this is going to be a problem, potentially. Oh, nope, we're fine. So we'll bring this back around, send it underneath these tracks here. Come back around, stay near the shore, and then meet up over here. So now we've got two complete routes. Although this one's unhappy, I don't know why. So I think I left part of the old route underneath there. That was what was the problem. So, okay, I'm going to modify this one just a little bit. I want to get this closer so I don't overlap if I don't have to. There we go. Now we're good. Kind of ugly little routes, but they will function appropriately, and hopefully we now have enough fish to make things operate. In fact, I'm going to move this fish factory to be a little bit closer, since we're in the mulligan business right now. And now they just have to go across the way to make their drop off. So much better solution. Wow, that is really high. Not the most beautiful thing in the world, but it will function, and at this point that's the main thing I'm going for with these. Probably should have got these kind of at the level of this sandbar. Might have worked a little bit better then in terms of realism, because that's a very high dock. Very high. Oh well. Okay, so our demand for everything is through the roof, including residential. I'm going to just make a pretty major residential district, and we're going to fill it in along the way. So we're gonna change the direction of the grid. I want it to line up with the highway. I don't love what has happened to the grid. I'm gonna break the power lines again, so I'm gonna pause it. Turn off road guidelines. I think that this is a sign that I need to get the power lines on the other side of the road. So rather than continually destroying this, there we go. That will work. Now I can resume this at least. We'll have this connection getting made over here. Someone's gonna love that view. And eventually this will be a really nice double looped connection over here, so we don't inadvertently drop off all power connections. For the time being though, it's a bit of a problem. I think we're just gonna angle all these blocks. So we'll have a little bit longer of a block here and we'll just angle them to make our connection. So when you know, in a North American city anyway, when you see an angled block like that, there's usually a reason, a rail corridor, some feature that caused the grid to change. We don't really have that here. We just have me wanting the road to be parallel to the highway. So I guess maybe that would be a rationale. Some other developer came in and started from the other side, and as a result you end up with this kind of modified grid. That is a pretty wide block. I think to mix it up, I might throw an angled block through here, or an angled connection through here. I'll use the freeform tool to have that meet up nicely there. And I'm going to try to hit it at a 90, or as close to it as possible. At this road, now we have a whole bunch of junctions. Not great on a collector, but not unexpected either. So this would be highly frowned upon. That is not a wide enough neck there, or a span there, but we're going to deal with it. This traffic would back up into that next intersection. Don't really have a lot of options because of the decision that we've made though with this roadway network. So we have a death care problem at this point. It's a full-fledged problem. I think we're going to add a cemetery over here, increase the capacity. I also want to take a look at our healthcare. Yeah, oh, another thing I missed over in this new neighborhood. Again, very much regret this. We're not going to make the same mistakes in our new neighborhood. So we're going to have like kind of a healthcare campus type area where we are taking care of our child care, our child health care, our elder care, a clinic, crematorium right by the clinic. How convenient. And, you know, really kind of just taking care of everything all in one quick shot. We've looped our water system now, which is a great benefit to the city. So that's good. I just want to get all the pipes placed. You know, this amount of infrastructure would be absolutely insane to construct at once in reality, but it's a game. So I'm going to do it because we are flush with cash. So why not really beef up our infrastructure? Now, this water pipe's not totally necessary. I'm doing this for me. I want to be able to continue down here and just keep adding. I know I'm going to be one block offset for a long time. Okay, so we are having a problem with our trash processing status as well. So I think that we are going to continue to add on to this Public Works campus and add in one of the new garbage assets. So we're going to have a waste processing complex and some waste transfer facilities. So the waste processing complex really needs to have these transfer facilities as well. In fact, this has no garbage trucks. So if you just build this, you're just throwing away $5,000 a week. So but the nice thing about these transfer facilities is that they don't really produce much pollution. They have a little bit of noise. So you can put them in a dense urban area and not really disrupt what's happening. So I'm going to try to get this close to a collector, but not directly on it. So I do want to have that access. And this is going to be a nice location for that. So the thing that's not so nice Now that I think about it, this is actually a terrible location. No, 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 no. It's a good location. So I was thinking about freeway access. Doesn't have great freeway access, but because we put this bridge across to the waste processing complex, it's a fine location. Already has water. Already has power. We're good. Let's do a bit of grading around it. Again, not perfect, but pretty good. So now, to get this area filled in and really start juicing our population, we're going to have a ton of residential over here. So this is probably a future death wave, but I think it's something that we need. So I do want to take care of all facilities up front, knowing that we're going to need all these things. And if we zone it all right away, it's going to become a problem. So I know that our university capacity is a problem at this point. Elementary school. We're going to put a high school. Try to get that away from our other high school. Have a couple of elementary schools. This is going to be all, or not all, but a lot of this is going to be residential. I'm going to spot in a couple of nodes of commercial activity. And it would really be beneficial to get some transit in this area as well. And I might put in a transit line. So I think along the front of this highway, to buffer these residents from the noise, we're going to have some office buildings, which I think is a nice complementary use. It's quiet. And now a gigantic swath of residential zoning. Probably not advised, but in terms of having a death wave later. But I think it's really necessary at this point. And while that's filling out, we're going to start thinking about transit. So we did get access to above and so first of all, I want to think about metro stations at this point. We could have some above ground. I just don't see the necessity of it. So I'm going to go with some below ground. I want to space these out every few blocks and work them into dense areas. Now, because we're retrofitting this in, we're going to need to take property to make this work. So I do want to try to minimize how much property we need to acquire when I'm doing this. And I do want to get a station right next to this train. The other thing that you want to think about when you're placing metro stations is what kinds of destinations are nearby. Because ideally, you are reaching destinations or origins, one of the two. So I'm going to get this back to our main drag. And again, try not to take out all that many buildings. And this is kind of where our density breaks down. I think I'm going to leave one more station over here. That'll be our end of the line. So with these, when you get Sunset Harbor, it defaults to being above ground. So if you want to go to the underground station, you've actually got to use your underground viewer. So with these, I like to keep angles on. I think that that's helpful. Road guidelines can also be helpful when you want to line things up. You want to make your slopes on the, or your curves on this as gentle as they can be. So if you can stretch them out over a few blocks, all the better. You can't stop them underneath roads though. Something to keep in mind because it will give you a bunch of errors. So this one's going to be a little tricky because I need to make a pretty significant curve, but it won't be insurmountable. And using the freeform tool in road guidelines, I should be able to make this, well, I thought it was going to be simple. Nothing is ever as simple as you hope it would be. Not too bad though. Okay, so we've got this established, and now I just need to place a line. So whenever I'm placing subways or transit in general, one of the things I like to think about is that the longer the stop distances, the faster the average speed of the line will be, which will make it competitive or better than traveling by other modes. So, for instance, the train's going to get pretty decent speed between these two stops. Between these two, it's going to be kind of slow. So those are just some things to keep in mind. I know it can be tempting because of the number of passengers these can take and how they can improve land values. It can really be tempting to just stack these things up. You can see people are already just flooding to this stop. Wow. 134 people on the first trip. That's pretty outstanding. And you can see our population's just starting to really increase because of that. So it's certainly, we're doing much better. So this video got a little bit longer than I had initially intended for it to be, so I have decided to split this video into 2 parts. So this is where we're going to end today. I want to thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please consider hitting that like button. If you aren't subscribed to my channel, please consider doing so. And please hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when I release the next part of this video. It is a 2-parter. I also want to give a huge shout out to my Patreon supporters. Their support makes everything I do possible, and I really appreciate them. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.